In today's tutorial, we're going to look at a bodyweight exercise that can take your core strength to the next level. What we're going to be talking about are the teaching points, then we're going to look at some common mistakes that people make with it, then we're going to look at, very simply, how we can make it a little bit easier and how we can make it a little bit harder. If you want to build your core strength and stability, please click the link below and go through to my How to Build Core Strength and Stability online 12-week program, and there you'll be able to use exercises like this to build your core strength with bodyweight exercises. The exercise in question is crawling. Now, this is a brilliant exercise because it's using your body weight and it's using not only the strength and the endurance required, but also stability as well. So with regards to the exercise and how we go about doing it, we start in this box position, hands below the shoulders, knees below the hips. What we then do is we then lift the knees about an inch off the floor. That is our start position. So we want to maintain the neutral posture of the spine and we want to maintain that box position. So we come into here and then we just lift. What we then do is we lift, say, left arm, right foot from the floor, and we move them forward a hand length or a half a foot length, and then we start our crawl across the floor. So we come into this position and it's there, but all the time what we're doing is we've got the abdominals braced and we've got the spine in position. So when I mentioned we need to bring the spine into the neutral posture, that's when we then brace the abdominals and hold it there. So when we lift up, we maintain it, and then we come forward, and then depending on how skilled you are, you can obviously move slower or faster. The other thing that we need to be mindful of is how much the shoulders and the hips rock back and forth. So if you watch from the front, it's here, we lift. What we want to maintain is a nice smooth movement so we're not rocking from side to side. So with regards to the crawling, that's how we want to be able to perform it, but what we are going to do is later on is we're going to talk about how we can make it slightly easier and how we can make it slightly harder. So again, if you aren't quite at this point, you'll be able to have an option to be able to get to this point, and then if you are at this point, you'll have an option to be able to move it on and develop it that much further. A common mistake that people make with crawling is essentially in the setup. So we come down into this position, which is our start position. They may get the neutral spine there, but what they tend to do is when they come up, they'll round like that. So that basically sets up the whole exercise, them then being in the wrong position as they start moving through. So the thing that we want to avoid, number one, is starting with a rounded spine and then lifting, or even when we start with a neutral spine but then when we lift, we come up into that rounded posture. If we can remove that from the exercise, we're going to be in a much more effective place to be able to perform that crawl properly. It's also going to develop the abdominals a little bit more. It's going to activate them in a new way because they need to be slightly lengthened as they activate. What a lot of people want to do when they activate their abdominals is pull the ribs down and sort of crunch their spine down. That's one thing we want to avoid. We want to be in that neutral posture and then compress the ribs and the abdominals so we're holding that position. So if we can take that mistake out of the crawl, it's going to be that much easier to be able to perform it in a much more correct way. But what we'll now do is look at how we can make it slightly easier and harder. The way that we make it easier is very simple, and all we do is we go into the start position and we lift the knees and we hold. So that's going to be our start position. So we come shoulders below the elbows, knees below the hips, we get the neutral spine, we brace the abdominals to hold it in place, and then all we're going to do is for say 10, 20 or even 30 seconds, we're just going to come up and hold that position. But also we're going to maintain the posture of the spine. So again, what we don't want to do is as we come up, we don't want to round and then hold. What we want to do is maintain the posture of the spine, hold it in and lift and hold. What that's going to do, that's just going to be able to build the strength and endurance into your body so you're able to perform it that much more effectively. So when we get to the next step, which will be the crawl, we're then able to hold that position, and we know we can hold it for say 10, 20 or 30 seconds. So when we go through the steps in the crawl, we know we've got that strength and endurance there to be able to do it. It is just a case of being able to transfer that from the static hold into the moving crawl. So on a very simple level, all we need to do, if we can't do the sort of the locomotion of the crawl, all we need to do is again get that start position, lift the knees and hold, and then just focus on the breathing, keeping everything nice and tight. What I wouldn't recommend is activating too much of the lats, so sort of screwing the shoulders in, because when we come to doing the crawl, it's going to be much harder to be able to do that. So by adding it in now isn't really going to help with the later on, because you're taking away some of the strength and endurance that you've built in. So when you make it easier, you don't need to really screw in with the arms to activate the lats, because it's going to be that much harder to do when we start moving forward. How we make it harder, so we're able to do the normal crawl. We're able to do this start position, lift the knees, and also move ourselves forward. We're also able to do it with nice, smooth shoulders and hips as we do it. So we're not rocking all over the place, we're not losing balance, we're nice and smooth with our movement. Once we get to that point, what we can then add in is the progression. And the progression is to basically walk forwards, but then crawl backwards. So we do it in reverse. So we're there and here. And now we go backwards. Why is that harder? Because we're trying to drive from the arms. When we go forward, we're driving from the legs to push us forwards. When we go backwards, we've got to push with the arms. So it's that much harder to be able to do, because we need the strength in the shoulders to be able to push us backwards. So when we're progressing, it's a very simple thing to be able to do, is just to think, I'm going to crawl forwards and I'm going to crawl backwards. If you need to practice that up front, there's a very simple thing that you can do. So you step forward and then you step back. So you just do one step at a time. So that's one way to be able to transfer the forward crawl into the backward crawl. So just getting used to it, you stay in the static position and step forward and then step back. So you just get your arms used to pushing you backwards whilst maintaining those level arms and shoulders. And then eventually, when you build up enough reps, you can walk forwards and you can walk backwards. So that's a very simple way of making it not only easier, but making it that much harder, but also being able to sort of transition into it with that stepping forward and stepping back. Thanks for watching. Hopefully it's been helpful. If you've enjoyed the content, hit the like button. If you've learned something new, hit the thanks button. If you've got a comment or a question, please leave it below. And if you want to watch more of these, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon.